All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. Hopefully, my computer doesn't crash like it did last time when I was recording on low power. I guess the battery just completely ran out the other night whenever I was playing computer games with the old buddies. So yeah, hopefully I don't have to re-record this a second time because my computer crashes. But man, no promises, no promises there. Today, like I said last week, no more college football episodes until we get into bowl season. Which actually first bowl happens on Saturday. I believe that's Texas Tech and Cal, a pair of 6-6 teams squaring off on Saturday the 16th. Unfortunately, there are three NFL games on that day, so I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that. Also, it is sad what the playoff era and really just opt outs in general have done to bowl season. It's a sham now. It's a sham. All the best players are opting out, or they're in the transfer portal, so they can't really participate anyways. So yeah, that's just the state of affairs right now. But that is all to say, we're doing NFL today, baby. We're doing a recap today, obviously minus the two Monday Night Football games because I mean it's just about noon on Monday whenever I'm recording this. Not gonna have those happen for quite some time. So yeah, we'll just recap those on Tuesday, which man, I don't know why they put these two games on Monday Night Football. They're not exactly great matchups, but I digress on that front. I mean, it wasn't even really looking like good matchups in preseason. But again, I digress. I digress. Either way, we've got a full slate of Week 14 to get through, minus those last two, and yeah, a little bit of disappointment. We are currently 1-3-1 heading into these Monday Night Football games. Need two wins, baby, to just pound that 500, man. That's all we got to. That's all we got to look forward to, man. The Detroit Lions, really. The Detroit Lions, the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, they're on the shit list, something fierce right now. But one thing at a time. Either way, let me wipe off these glasses real quick because I got schmutz on them. Lots of schmutz, when you're cutting up corn and you're just violently smacking corn with a large knife. Sometimes you get a little spatter, a little spatter on the old glasses. These things happen. These things happen. But yeah, let me grab my coffee. Can take a little sip real quick, and we're just gonna get straight. Well, actually, I'm gonna keep this right in my lap. I like having the coffee in my lap. First coffee of the day, by the way. Usually this is kind of a pick me up after a long day of work. No, I'm lazy. I got up like way past 10, and you know what? We're here now. So enough bloviating, enough daddling, doodling on, whatever the hell I just said there. Let's get into the games. Starting off on Thursday night, where you know what? It was legitimately entertaining game, and if you're like me and you bet the under at 30.5, you hated yourself basically the entire game. You just thought life is pain, existence is suffering, all that sort of thing. Over was dead by halftime. What more can I say? Life sucks, man. Life absolutely sucks. But you know what? That's just kind of how this thing goes sometimes. If we would have gotten a lot more like the second half, where no one scored anything until the Steelers scored a touchdown, a 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter, maybe we would have hit that bet. But as it was, we started the week 0-1. NBA gambling's back though, baby. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right so far in NBA gambling. Don't want to jinx anything. Knock on wood there. Probably not any picks I'm going to share on the show just because they're time sensitive, and it is what it is there. Maybe I'll tweet some out at some point, but for right now, that's just for me. That's just for me. I've found a way, just through sharp gambling picks, to get a profitable thing going in every season of the sports calendar. So sports gambling going good right now. Going good right now. That's all I got to say about that. Anyways, Patriots Steelers. I'm brains all over the place this morning. I had like 4 or 5 slices of pizza for my first meal of the day, so I'm a little scatterbrained here. Also, just drinking my first coffee, so it is what it is there. But as far as the Patriots Steelers go, Bailey Zappi, pretty solid. I mean, really, it all came in the first half, but I mean, 240, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, as far as the games have gone this year with Bailey Zappi, probably the best one he's had this year. I mean, no question about it. Kind of a startling indictment of the Steelers' defense for sure. I mean, not a great day for them. Giving up 21 points and a half to the Steelers. Obviously, they tightened up there in the second half. Excuse me. TJ Watt got smacked in the jaw right off the bat, and then teams don't really take this concussion thing seriously. It's basically if you're a rotation level player, like yeah, you're a mid level starter and you get a concussion, okay, we'll keep you out of this game. If you're TJ Watt and you get smacked across the face by somebody's knee on the jaw, you go into the medical tent. Then he goes back into the locker room, then goes back into the game. We're just going to turn a blind eye to it, then put you in the concussion protocols after the game. Or if you're like Derrick Henry, I believe it was last week, we'll just say we'll take you out of the game now, but you're not going to be in concussion protocol. We need you to get in the game next week. So yeah, the concussion protocols are an absolute joke in the NFL, an absolute joke right now. But yeah, that's besides the point. That is all to say, though. That exactly besides the point. That is all to say. Steelers played well in the second half. T.J. Watt played very well as well. Well, okay enough. I mean, to be honest, folks, this was not a very good game. I mean, it was entertaining towards the end, but I mean, a scoreless third quarter, a fourth quarter that ended up being exciting, but ultimately meh. I mean, the Steelers. I mean, granted, they're going up against a sneaky, solid Patriots defense there, but I mean, under 3 yards per carry. They averaged just over 5 yards per attempt passing. Just a putrid offensive performance. Not good at all. And like I said, even T.J. Watt, though, only one tackle for loss in the game, which I say only, it is what it is there, but I mean, overall, just not a great game from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're now 7-6. They've lost to 2-win teams in back-to-back weeks, the Cardinals and the Patriots, both teams that are destined for a top 5 pick at the very worst. Jockeying for the number 1 overall pick, but I mean, man, the Bears via the Panthers are just running away with that one. The Panthers, I mean, the Bears don't even have to be that bad. The Bears are actually playing some solid football right now. They just beat the Lions this past week. But they made a hell of a trade with a stupid, dumb GM in Scott Fitterer. So now they're still in line to have the number 1 overall pick because the Panthers are terrible. They are so terrible and don't have a number 1 pick this year or next year, I think, for that matter. So Bryce Young, got a feel for the kid. Not a great time to be Bryce Young out there. But I digress on that front. My brain is just jumping all over the place. What does this game really mean in the grand scheme of things for the Patriots? Draft position. They dropped a spot or two just by virtue of winning this game. Still no real clue what's going to happen with Bill Belichick after the season. There's rumblings going both ways on that one, so I'll steer clear of it for now. On the Steelers side, though, man, they were supposed to get through this stretch and have, well, they were supposed to be like 9-4 after this stretch. I mean, going to the Cardinals and the Patriots, you expect 2 wins there. Now you're going on the road to the Colts. You're facing the Bengals at home, who with Jake Browning under center, surprisingly good. They just absolutely worked the Colts last week. Just giving away all sorts of results here, but if you follow the league, you already know how this stuff went. Then they're at the Seahawks, at the Ravens. The Steelers could lose out here. They could very easily lose out here, especially with Kenny Pickett not in the lineup. And it's not like Kenny Pickett is a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but Kenny Pickett has been, I mean, better than Mitch Trubisky, which isn't saying much, but it's good enough to keep him afloat. The offense is bad. The defense has been spotty at best. Some games are good, some games are bad. You don't know which team you're getting on any given week. To start the year, I mean, the Steelers were a hot bet, man. I'll tell you what, I made some money off the Steelers, but as this season has gone on, boy, have they kind of digressed, regressed even. And I still think, with Mike Tomlin at the helm, probably want to go 9-8. I feel like they could still win 2 of these next 4 games they've got. I mean, certainly they're all winnable to a certain extent, except for the Ravens. I think the Ravens are probably going to beat them, but especially being at M&T Bank Stadium there in Baltimore, I don't think they have a whole lot of chance to win that, but it is, it's a rivalry game, and usually that game ends up being close at the end of things. I mean, could still be 9-8, could still vie for a playoff spot, but in your heart of hearts, if you're a Steelers fan, you know this team isn't going anywhere. Not this season. They're going to have to make some sweeping changes in the offseason, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to kind of compete. Definitely got to bring in a new offensive mind there. Got to keep rebuilding the offensive line. I'd say probably lean a little bit more into Jaylen Warren going forward than you would be leaning into Najee Harris. Defensively, they got to rebuild the secondary. That was a big theme coming into the year. Joey Porter Jr. has played well at times, so that's good. But you got an aging Patrick Peterson out there. You can't expect him to be out there really for an extended period of time. You got to keep rebuilding all sorts of areas of the team. So that's where we're at right now as the Steelers. Patriots, we all know what the Patriots are. I mean, one of the worst offenses in the entire league. Solid defense, personnel, staff, all that sort of stuff. I don't know. This just seems like a matchup of two sad teams that didn't quite make me money because they didn't hit the under, but it is what it is there. Not much else to talk about there on that one, so we'll keep it moving. Waiting for this to load up. Yep, there we go. I had to pause so it's not playing in the background there, videos and whatnot. Also, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, Shohei Ohtani got $700 million from the Dodgers. 10 years, $700 million. He's going to be a billionaire by the time he retires, man. It is insane the amount of money that he just got from the LA Dodgers, and with the endorsements he's going to get and the money he's going to bring into the franchise, probably a worthwhile price point too. I mean, it's crazy how much money that guy is worth, and boy, he's going to be a wealthy man for a long, long time. But back on the football of it all, as my brain continues to just jump around willy-nilly, I'm fried after that last week. Coffee is good. Coffee is great. Let me take another gulp of it, just to satiate. All right, let's go on to Sunday. Falcons firmly on my shit list. They are they're 6-7 now after losing to the Buccaneers at home. They had them. They had it right in their grasp. All they had to do was get a stop on defense on the final possession of the Buccaneers' day, and they would have won this game. They would have covered for us. We would have made money. Besides the point on the making money part, but boy, Baker Mayfield just took them right down the field. Gets a touchdown with, I believe like 30 seconds left in the game. Buccaneers go up 29-25, and that's all she wrote pretty much. Desmond Ridder got him like right down on the goal line at the end there, but committed the cardinal sin when you are that late in the game. Threw the ball inbounds with no timeouts left. Only a couple seconds left on the clock. Clock runs out at the 1 yard line. Falcons lose this game. Exciting ending, but ultimately disappointment when it's all said and done. And that's the word I would use to describe the Falcons. Very disappointing this year. I thought for sure, especially in the division that they were in, that they would kind of at some point pull away from the pack here. But the fact of the matter is, they're the same team as the Buccaneers, the same team as the Saints. They're all just like not very good, kind of sad teams there in the NFC South. And then there's the Carolina Panthers all the way down at the bottom, who are just terrible. I mean awful. A bad franchise run by a bad owner and a bad GM and in a bad culture. Just terrible overall. We don't need to talk about the Panthers too much, so we'll just stay away from that right now. But credit to the Buccaneers for going on the road in a hostile environment in a divisional road game. Baker Mayfield having a clutch drive there at the end to go down there and win it. Credit where it is due. That's a clutch win right there, and a win they needed to at 5-7 to keep themselves alive in the division race. As for the Falcons, though, you had it right in your hands, and ultimately Desmond Ridder shot you in the foot again. Drake London played out of his mind, so credit where it's due there. Still haven't really been able to get Bijan Robinson going. He had a couple, solid touches in this game, but 3.4 yards per carry. Made some impact through the air, 5 receptions for 57 yards, but just not good enough compared to what you expected of him coming in. And you know what? Like it or not, whether it's fair or not, a lot of that falls on the shoulders of the coach there. Arthur Smith. Excuse me. I like the guy. I really like him. I think he should stick around for a while, but fact of the matter is, this is just not good enough. They've not been good enough this year. They are, I think, by far the most talented team in that division. They got weapons all over the offense. They got a solid defense. They just have not been able to close teams out when it's all said and done. They've lost some perplexing games down the stretch of the year. It's just, again, simply not good enough. And I mean, against a offense like the Buccaneers, that's not exactly lighting the world on fire. I mean, Baker Mayfield puts up 3 touchdowns on you. You give it 100 rushing yards to Rachaad White. I mean, you give up big plays on the worst possible time, worst possible stage of the game, and like what would be the final drive, pretty much, of the game. If you just got to stop there, they simply can't do it. Baker Mayfield gets like a vast preponderance of his yards on that final drive, and they get the win. So I hope they don't fire Arthur Smith. Like I said, I like the guy. I think he should stick around there for a long time as the coach. Just needs to get a quarterback in there. But also, I would not be surprised at all if they just decide to pull the plug after this year, because there's no other way to describe it. It's been a disappointment. It's been an absolute disappointment. Yes, they could go on a run here, the final 4 games of the season, close this thing out, get 10-7. 10-7 is more than good enough to win you that division, by the way. They would run away with the division at 10-7. So it's all still kind of in front of them. But man, you just got to think back to this offseason. You don't even make an attempt to go after Lamar Jackson, who would have been an absolute superstar in this offense. You don't even consider taking a quarterback in the first round there, which I guess at number 8, there's not really a whole lot left to choose from there of the quarterbacks. They all kind of like went after the first couple picks in the draft for sure, but you don't even consider trading up to get a quarterback. You just decide to ride with Desmond Ridder, which, hey, if it works out, it works out, but Desmond Ridder's clearly not the guy. The guy you bring in Taylor Heineke, not even really a serviceable guy to replace Desmond Ridder, so Desmond Ridder is back in the game. And the fact of the matter is, the main objective this offseason was supposed to be grab a quarterback, and they did not do it. They were in position to do it at number 8. They could have traded up from number 8 to get one of those, like an Anthony Richardson would have worked awesome in this offense with Arthur Smith. Absolutely fantastic. But they didn't pull the trigger. That shouldn't fall on Arthur Smith. That should fall on the GM, whose name escapes me right now. But they should have done it. They should have gotten a quarterback in the building. They didn't, and now you're reaping what you sow, unfortunately. And my nose is itching. I mean, you're making my nose itch right now, Atlanta. That's how disappointed I am in what the season has become. Like I said, though, still got 4 games left, and who are they playing? I think they got some divisional games down the stretch here, just by design of the schedule. Well, you got the Panthers next week, so you better win that game. You better win against the Panthers next week. I'll just say that right now. Then you got the Colts, the Bears, and Saints on the road to end the season. Colts are at home. Then you got the Bears and Saints on the road to end the season, which, by the way, the Bears are playing some damn good football right now. They are really rounded into shape here towards the back half of the season. Is that going to save their coaching staff? Maybe, sort of, probably not, but my nose itches real bad, real bad, but they're playing well enough to where you're going to get a good haul for Justin Fields. Justin Fields, by the way, might be your quarterback next year if the GM decides to grow a pair of balls and go trade for a guy instead of just rolling with what they got in the building, which is simply not good enough. Again, I digress on that front, but you got a couple real winnable games here down the stretch. Obviously, Panthers and Colts will probably be the easiest ones of those. That final 2 games, man. I mean, that Saints game, especially on the road in the Superdome, it's a dogfight every single time out there. So I don't know what's going to happen in that one. You hope to win against the Bears on New Year's Eve. There's no guarantee of that as well. They could very easily just stumble down the stretch here. I mean, they've got a chance. I mean, all of those games I just mentioned are winnable, especially the Panthers. You got a good chance to have a good jumping off point next week. But for right now, they're all very losable too. So we'll have to see about that going forward. Again, a disappointing season thus far for the Atlanta Falcons. Disappointing to say the least. But let's just keep it moving from there. Very much a anyone's race there in the NFC South right now with how this season has gone. All right, so let's keep it moving. Yes, the aforementioned Bears. They hosted the Lions this week. The Lions, who have been struggling on defense, they continued to struggle in this one. Bears get the win. By the way, it's not just the Bears offense that's playing better, which when you're playing against the Lions certainly helps. The Bears defense, I mean, they held the Lions to 13 points in this one. They get the win 28-13. Justin Fields, it feels like Luke Getsy in the beginning portion of every season just forgets that Justin Fields can run the ball. I don't I don't really understand. Like the last 2 seasons, that's basically been the story. In 2022, they come out of the gates. Justin Fields looks terrible. They're not running the ball. They have 0 designed runs out there. Basically, it's just like, God, I want this nose to stop itching real bad. I don't know why it keeps doing this, but it does. But yeah, last season it happened where they didn't really run Justin Fields at all. Made him a pocket passer, which he was terrible. This season they did the same thing in the back half of both seasons. They're just like, oh wait, we have a quarterback who is faster than almost every other quarterback in the league and is big and physical as well. Why not just run him a little bit, huh? Let's see what happens. And amazingly, when they started running Justin Fields more, they got more success on the offensive side of the ball. Go figure. Imagine what they could do if they decided to start doing that in, say, September instead of waiting all the way until the back portion of the season to start really running Justin Fields like that. Hey, we could have a real gangbuster situation on our hands. But yeah, that's kind of harping on the fact that at the very least, I don't think Luke Getsy is coming back as the offensive coordinator. I think he's shown the last 2 years that not really playing around the personnel per se. A lot of Matt Nagyism going on there, where it's like, hey, we're gonna run my offense, and the players are gonna adapt around it. It should be the players that you have kind of dictate what your offense is when it's all said and done. Hey, maybe easier said than done, but last 2 years, like I just said, it's been the exact same playbook where you sucked in the beginning of the season, and then you just realized, oh wait, we have a fast, big physical quarterback that we can start running a little bit, and then your offense magically gets better from there. It's amazing how that works. So yeah, Luke Getsy's probably not coming back. But the Bears, 5-8, still technically alive in playoff contention. What do they got down the stretch here? I mean, Browns next week. They're at the Browns, which, hey, Joe Flacco slinging the pill out there. Probably playing better than even what Deshaun Watson was doing when he was back in the lineup there. Hey, Browns, maybe got something going there. We'll have to see what happens. But then they got the Cardinals, the Falcons, and the Packers down the stretch. They're going to have to win out if they want to go to the playoffs, obviously. That would put them at 9-8, and even then, that's not exactly a guarantee you get in the playoffs, because I mean, very very well could happen that all the teams in the wild card are 10-7 or something like that. 9-8 may be good enough to get you the 7th seed, but we'll see. But for the Bears to even be in this point is nothing short of impressive right now. I mean, they've won 3 of their last 4, beating the Lions and Vikings, 2 divisional opponents in those games as well. Never mind that game against the Vikings. The Vikings, they scoring 12 points in a win. That's not something you get every day. But that also kind of harps to the defensive side of the ball. Matt Eberflus is starting to get that defense playing. They've given up under 20 points in, what is that? 1, 2. Oh goodness. I'm really going. I don't know, man. They've been playing much better. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm an absolute idiot. They've given up under 20 points in 3 of their last 4 games. Granted, one of those games was against the Panthers, and then the other game they got scored 31 on by the Lions. But still playing much better than they were at the beginning of the season. They were getting absolutely ripped apart at the beginning of the season. I mean, they gave up 38 to the Packers in week 1, 27 to the Buccaneers, 41 to the Chiefs that aren't really even that good. And then the Broncos, they give up 31 points. I mean, they weren't playing well at the beginning of the season. To this point now, some of those offseason additions are starting to round into form a little bit. Safeties are playing well. The secondary's playing well. I mean, I think Matt Eberflus, again, it's not exactly a guarantee that he keeps his job, but I think he has done enough through the back portion of this season to at least give him another year in the role. We'll see. I think when you bring in a new quarterback, which it seems like they're going to do with that number 1 overall pick, probably better to just start a new regime so that you're not in a situation where if Matt Eberflus does bad in year 1 with a new quarterback, but it's year 3 with the team, and you fire him, kind of puts that quarterback in a weird situation where a head coach is coming in, wasn't their guy that they had input on drafting. It's a little bit different if you keep Ryan Poles around, which I assume they're going to do. So at least the GM will be there for whoever the quarterback that is drafted. You still got that guy in there that vouched for you on draft day, but you can get into a weird situation with a quarterback if you don't have a new regime in there and they're all coming in together. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I think Eberflus has done just enough to say, like, okay, Luke Getsy, you got to get rid of him. But on offense, okay, if you get a new offensive coordinator, hopefully he does well. We'll give you at least another year. So I think that's where the Bears are at right now. Also, like I said, would not be surprised if Eberflus just gets the boot after this year too, because I mean, like I said, it's not exactly a simple decision on whether to keep him. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially when you consider the addition of a new young quarterback and keeping his development as the paramount concern within your organization. A lot to think about for the Bears right now. A lot to think about. You could have a really nice trade shaping up if and when you decide to ship Justin Fields out of town. He's playing well enough now to where I think you can justify getting a second round pick for him. I still don't think he's first round pick sort of caliber as far as in a trade situation. But at quarterback, with the way he's been playing down the stretch, very easily you get a second. I mean, maybe even a third round pick if it ends up, someone ends up bargaining you down. Good draft compensation, though, for a guy like Justin Fields, I think. Probably a high pick plus, a few lower end picks, too. Stuff that's very valuable for a team that's still in a rebuilding phase, probably a year or two away from really making a playoff push. So, got those draft assets in tow. Maybe, bring in a quarterback, keep bolstering that offensive line. I mean, Bears aren't in a terrible situation. I think they've been getting a bunch of flack for, some flack from different portions of the NFL media about the Montez Sweat trade, but they traded for him and signed him to a big old extension. So I think if he's going to be a cornerstone of your franchise, spending that second round pick to go out and get him is not the worst thing in the world. I think he's definitely better than just about any second round pick you're going to get in this upcoming draft in all likelihood. So yeah, I think the Bears are in a good spot right now. I think Ryan Poles is still making some good decisions. He has got a lot of historic badness, stink to overcome, if you will, in the Bears' history, but doing an all right job so far. On the other side, the Lions, I don't want to keep harping on this point that I've made week after week after week, but the Lions aren't built to compete this year. They're simply not built to go to a Super Bowl. They're built to win maybe one playoff game, but if they get one of those divisional opponents, which it looks like they're going to end up doing in this first round, whether it be the Packers or the Vikings, someone in there is probably going to end up facing the Detroit Lions when it's all said and done. You could have a real weird situation on your hands where maybe they don't even win a playoff game this year, but I think they will end up winning a playoff game. They'll probably, get bounced in the divisional round if I had to guess. Yeah, I mean, the Lions, they are who they are at this point. And Jared Goff is starting to play like Jared Goff from the Rams now, too. It's kind of, over the last couple weeks, I mean, let's just kind of look at the game log here. He's had some flashes, had some highs, but he's not been the efficient quarterback he was to start this season. Granted, against Green Bay, it was a loss, but ultimately, you score you throw for 2 touchdowns, 332. That's fine. Against New Orleans was a win, but 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. He threw 3 interceptions versus the Bears the last time they played. Then this time was just bad. I mean, just bad to say the least. With 1 touchdown, 1 interception, under 60% completion percentage. Excuse me. And I mean, maybe saying that he's playing like he was on the Rams is a little bit. I mean, a little bit disingenuous. He's not playing that bad. He's not playing great though. Especially over the last several weeks, he's been inconsistent, throwing balls to the defense. Just not been awesome overall. He's been kind of, I mean, you look at his overall numbers for this year. I mean, just a little under 3,500 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Don't want to short him on that one. He's playing, average, maybe a little bit above average. He's Jared Goff, man. I think he's proven that he's a starting quarterback level in this league, but I'm not sure he's a guy that when you get into the teeth of the postseason, you can really trust him to go out there and get you a win, get you to a Super Bowl victory. I don't know if that's necessarily the guy that you're looking for. I'm not sure that's necessarily what the Lions kind of thought they were getting anyways. So I don't know. I don't know where you go from here. I feel like they're still going to make the playoffs. They're still going to they've already got 9 wins and they've got I believe a fairly favorable schedule down the stretch. I mean, they played the Vikings twice, so that's not exactly favorable defensively. That'll be another big test for Jared Goff down the stretch. But let's take a look at what the Vikings have down the stretch. They got Broncos, not a pushover. Viking, actually, no, they got a tough schedule down the stretch. Excuse me, because they play the Broncos, then at Vikings, at Cowboys, who are a buzzsaw at home. That'll be a dandy of a matchup though in Week 17, and then you are playing the Vikings in the final week of the season, which we'll see if they rest guys or if they're playing people. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But you got four teams that are legitimately playoff caliber teams overall. I mean, the Vikings have been sad here recently, but still 7-6 on the season in a divisional opponent. And the Cowboys and Broncos, I mean, Cowboys are one of the best teams. They're currently number 2 seed in the NFC after just blowing the Eagles out last night. We'll get to that towards the end of the episode, but I mean, the Vikings, an interdivisional opponent, in the Broncos, man, they could very easily lose their next 4 too. I don't think they will. I think they probably end up getting to 10-7, probably just eke out a divisional championship. But this is not shaping up like a team that's going to compete. I don't want to harp on that too much because I've said it again and again, over and over again, each and every week. I find it hard to say new things about the Detroit Lions. They got a good young core. Think probably want to play Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit more. Just a thought. 6 yards per carry in this one, though. To be fair, David Montgomery had the exact same yards on one less carry, so they're running the hell out of the ball. I'll give them credit there. But I don't know. You got a good young core. Not exactly the guy that you want in place at quarterback. I don't know how Graham Glasgow, an offensive lineman, ended up with a lost fumble. Who's to say? I'm guessing. Well, just judging by the fumble chart here, Jahmyr Gibbs had a fumble but didn't lose it, and Graham Glasgow also had a fumble and lost it. So just reading that right there, not having watched the game, I'm assuming Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled the ball. Graham Glasgow picks it up, then decides he's going to be a hero, run for a first down. Defense says, not so fast, my friend. Shishaisen right out of there. He loses the fumble of his own. That probably was a fun play to watch if you're a Bears fan. I'll say that right now. Also, before we get out of here, I'd be remiss if I didn't say shout out Jaquan Brisker, man. 17 tackles, 13 solo tackles, 2 pass breakups, an absolute monster. Also, Montez Sweat got a sack and 4 QB hits in the game. So I hate it. I hate that the Bears are playing well, but I credit where it's due. They absolutely dominated the Lions in this game, and they've got a good stretch ahead of them too. They could very easily, I mean, like I said, Browns, Cardinals, Falcons, Packers, all winnable games, man. They could actually make some noise down the stretch, get a little momentum built going into next season there in Chicago. And I hate it. I hate to say it, but I think the Bears might be playing a little bit well right now. They might be moving in the right direction. I am horrifyingly worried that Ryan Poles may know what he's doing at GM there. All right. After a big weekend for the Colts as far as an exciting win over the Tennessee Titans, they just got absolutely worked by the Bengals, 34-14. This after Jake Browning diced up. Who do they play on Monday night? I can't quite remember right now because I'm stupid. But let me check real quick. They played the Jaguars on Monday night last week and had an absolute dandy of a matchup. Won that one. Now, once again, Jake Browning, efficient as all hell. 18 of 24, 275 yards, 11.5 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And it's not like he's playing gangbusters on the other side on defense. The Colts defense has not been very good this year. But 2 straight games where he has been incredibly efficient. He had over 11 yards per attempt in this one. Jake Browning's making himself a lot of money right now. A lot of money at this moment in time. He is he's not going to be a starter for anyone, I don't think, unless he's a bridge QB down the road. But he's going to make, probably a good salary, maybe close to $10 million, playing backup for probably the next, 10 years or so. Good for Jake Browning. Also, big time credit to Zach Taylor and that staff over that offensive staff. They're better than I thought they were. I'm just hand up. I thought that they were a team held aloft by the virtues and the prowess of Joe Burrow at quarterback there and the amazing wide receivers, which they still got amazing wide receivers. Don't want to take away from that one. Still definitely helps to have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd out there. But at the same time, you got to love with what the Bengals have done with the arsenal that they have to work with. fairly similar situation, you could argue, to what the Falcons have over there in the NFC South. And meanwhile, while the Falcons have struggled without a quarterback, without their starting quarterback, or really they have a starting quarterback, but they don't really. You know what I'm trying to say. The Bengals, they put Jake Browning in there. And the offense is humming, man. Absolutely, still playing well, putting up 34 in the last two games each. So I mean, you got to be really impressed with what they did. They're a lot better than I thought they were. A lot better than I gave them credit for, quite frankly. So flowers and kudos to them. They are now 7-6 on the season. Still, well, very much in the wild card hunt. I'm still baffled and perplexed as to how the standings work in playoff contention, because the Bengals just absolutely annihilated the Colts in this game, and they're still behind the Colts in playoff standings. I don't know if it's because of the division record or what. I simply have no idea, but they're still, I mean, there's a logjam at 7-6 in the AFC. Some of those teams are going to fall off, but hey man, you keep winning, you're going to put yourself in a good position here. And I mean, down the stretch, they play the Vikings next week, which, with the way the Vikings are playing, boy am I worried about that as a Vikings fan. Then you're at a struggling Steelers team, at the Chiefs and the Browns. So not an easy schedule, but some winnable games coming up here for the Bengals. Still kind of got an uphill battle to go in and win a playoff game. No, not win a playoff game, but get into the playoffs in the first place. But hey, if Jake Browning keeps playing like this, no question they could really put themselves in position to go into the playoffs, which would be an absolute win, considering what we expected to happen when Joe Burrow went out with that wrist injury. I guess a couple weeks ago. I can't remember exactly what game that. Well, yes, it was against the Ravens a couple weeks back that they had that. So yeah, we'll have to see if Jake Browning keeps it up right now. By the way, I mean, the AFC North is a hilarious division. Every team is solid. I mean, they're just a solid division. I mean, Baltimore obviously in line to win the 1 seed at 10-3. And you got the Browns in second at 8-5. And then tied at last place is the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals at 7-6. Every single team has a winning record in the AFC North. As Mike Tomlin says, the kitchen is hot. The kitchen is absolutely hot in the AFC North. On the other side, though, the Colts, I mean, Shane Steichen, if he makes the playoffs there, he's going to win Coach of the Year. No two ways about it. He's done a hell of a job there for the Indianapolis Colts. Unfortunately, though, they had a terrible offensive game in this one. Lou Anarumo, veteran defensive coordinator, dialed one up in this one. Obviously knew what kind of quarterback he was playing against in Gardner Minshew. Career backup, not a bad thing, but that's just the reality of the situation with Gardner Minshew. And knew that, you know what, if we just load up the box, especially without Jonathan Taylor in there, Zach Moss, Trey Sermon, not exactly putting the fear of God into you. So, I mean, under 3 yards per carry in this game. Outside of Michael Pittman, not a receiver that consistently scares the life out of you there. And Michael Pittman had himself a good day, but I mean, your second leading receiver was rookie tight end Will Mallory. Shout out the guy out of Miami, very fast white boy out of Miami there. But yeah, I mean, this is just a good defensive performance from the Cincinnati Bengals. Zaire Franklin, still a monster, 14 tackles, 1 tackle for loss in this game, but they just got kneecapped in this game. Absolutely destroyed by the Bengals. And you know what? Down the stretch, still winnable. I mean, they got a couple. They got final week of the season. They got the Texans. That's probably the hardest game left on their schedule. But they got the Steelers at the Falcons, and then they have the Raiders before they face off against the Texans. All very winnable games. They still got everything they want right in front of them. Still very possible that they win the next however many games, next 4 if everything goes right for them. Very much in this playoff hunt right now. A much more favorable schedule, I would say, than what the Bengals have on the other side. So still in good shape. I still feel the exact same way, though. I mean, without a quality quarterback, they're still probably a year away. I mean, hopefully, you hope to God that Anthony Richardson stays healthy next year. The guy you drafted number 4 overall. Obviously, that would be a big boost for your team if he was able to play well next season. But you got some major rebuilding to do on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know what they do with Gus Bradley. I don't know what the situation is between Gus Bradley and Jim Irsay. You may remember in the last hiring cycle, one of the prerequisites to taking the Indianapolis job was Jim Irsay basically said, like, hey, you're going to have to keep Gus Bradley. No matter what, whoever gets hired, your defensive coordinator will be Gus Bradley. Will he back off of that in year two if Shane Steichen decides to go in a different direction? Because I don't necessarily love what the Indianapolis defense has done this year. Obviously, they're a little bit undermanned in the secondary. You may remember Isaiah Rodgers getting popped for gambling before the season. Not only gambling, but gambling on his own team, which is just super dumb, just terrible, bad thing to do. One of the dumbest things you could possibly do in an NFL setting. But that is all to say that one of their better defensive backs was not playing throughout the course of the season. They are bereft of talent on the back end there. And it's not like they don't have holes in the offensive side of the ball as well. I mean, probably going to bring in another couple receivers, at least one or two receivers. Josh Downs is a nice guy to have in his rookie year. I think he'll continue to get better. Alec Pierce hasn't quite worked out how you expected him to after being drafted in the second round last year. Maybe you bring in a guy in free agency, but maybe they were going to bring in a guy in free agency in the last couple years, and that simply hasn't happened for Chris Ballard. Got some things to rebuild over there. They're still probably a year or two away from really competing. But when you're in the AFC South, they could win the division as soon as next year, though. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Hell, even this year, maybe they end up winning the division because, I mean, Jacksonville's not exactly playing well. Houston just got annihilated by a bad Jets team. And, I mean, only real terrible team in this division is the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they could still sneak into to getting the division title here if they play their cards right down the stretch. But again, I don't think anyone from the AFC South is a real threat to go down there and win a title, quite frankly. Let's keep it moving, though. I probably already spent too much time on that game. We are only 3 games into the Sunday slate right now. I got to pick up the pace a little bit. Browns beat the Jaguars 31-27. Jay Flack, the Brow, is back, baby. 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, he had a monster first half in this game where he was just lighting up the scoreboard, throwing bomb after bomb after barm. Yeah. I mean, this is just kind of what happens. This is kind of what happens when you face off against an immobile quarterback on the other side in Trevor Lawrence. Who would have thought that after coming off a high ankle sprain the previous week that Trevor Lawrence wouldn't exactly be very efficient? I mean, he threw the ball 50 times for 257 yards, a robust 5.1 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions on the day as well. Was sacked 4 times. Trying to see here. There's just a lot of defensive stats right now that just, make my head spin. They just make my head spin. And I mean, you kept Myles Garrett in check for the most part, but 3 QB hits and a tackle for loss. You got a sack from Grant Delpit. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was in his bag with 2 tackles for loss. Basically, without a little bit of mobility for Trevor Lawrence, you made the job easier for the Cleveland defense, and it's not exactly like they lit the world on fire. I mean, they gave up 27 in this game. They've been really struggling over the last several weeks there with that Cleveland defense. But I mean, even still, I mean, with Joe Flacco in the building, like I said, playing better than really what Deshaun Watson was doing. Clearly better than what Dorian Thompson-Robinson had been doing over the last several weeks in that starting role. So, I mean, hey, name the starter for the rest of the season after this game. Cleveland Browns still very much in this thing. And I think the Jaguars, both of these teams have a clear ceiling, right? The Browns are starting Joe Flacco, which is not exactly a success or a recipe for success when you talk about going deep into the playoffs, not with Joe Flacco being a 38-year-old guy coming straight off of the couch, straight into the starting lineup for the Cleveland Browns. The Jaguars, though, they're a perplexing team. With the talent that they have, particularly on offense, they should be much better than they are, quite frankly. I mean, they've been able to score points, but Trevor Lawrence has been inconsistent. The play calling has been inconsistent. The defense has been atrocious. I mean, especially recently, they have been so bad. I mean, the only good games that they've had on defense, really, I mean, one came against the Titans. You had another good game against the Steelers. You held the Falcons to 7 points early on in the season. Outside of that, I mean, they're giving up well over 20 points a game, like every single time out there, quite frankly. this is it's a bad defense with one really, really solid player. I mean, Josh Allen is, I mean, defensive end, not quarterback. I think he got another sack in this one, if I'm not mistaken. Could absolutely be wrong, and I absolutely was wrong. 2 tackles for loss, though, in this game. I mean, outside of Josh Allen, who's got 13 and a half sacks and a slew of tackles for loss this season, just a bad defense, quite frankly. I mean Travon Walker isn't exactly lighting the world on fire out there. That was always kind of a head scratcher for me at the number 1 overall pick when they did take him, but I don't know. I'm not in position there, so that was someone else's decision, I suppose. It was was it Trent Baalke who's the GM there with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know. We'll see how that all works out there. But ultimately, this season, it's a bad defense with an inconsistent offense, and that is a recipe that'll get you upset in the playoffs, quite frankly. And I mean, it's not like the AFC is a bunch of gangbusters this year. If the Chiefs had even one other receiver that was worth a damn outside of Rashee Rice, they would probably be the best team in the AFC. Not by much, but they would be the best team in the AFC. Outside of that, though, I mean, it's not a bunch of gangbusters. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens have been inconsistent as well. I think they're just a slightly better version of what the Jacksonville Jaguars are, quite frankly, because they've had some head scratchers of games throughout the course of this year, but still 10-3. And playing fairly well. Got an exciting win yesterday. I mean, really, really fun game to watch. But yeah, I mean, even in that dynamic, I think that the Jaguars are a clear kind of rung below just about everyone else at the top of that conference. So I don't see them as real great contenders. The Browns aren't exactly either, but they're very much in line to get a playoff game. Well, get into the playoffs at the very least. I mean, they're 6-1 at home this year. Really, really good team at home. Granted, Jaguars are a really good team away too, which is kind of a testament to how good the Browns are at home because they beat the Jaguars in this one. I suppose if you're going based off of trends and all that, but I think we're getting very, very close to having wrung all the juice we can out of this one. So just a quick shout out on the way out the door. Hey, Martin Emerson, baby. Or as whoever the announcer was called him, MJ Emerson. Never heard that before, but I like it. Martin Emerson Jr., former Mississippi State product. Very famously in college against Auburn. Cannot remember the receiver to save my life. However, I think it was his freshman year, made a big-time freshman mistake, just talking shit in someone's face, and then on the very next play, got beat for about a 30-yard touchdown. These things happen. These things happen, man. Not going to hold that against you. But Martin Emerson, 2 interceptions in this game, playing really, really well this season. You got to love. I mean, 4 interceptions so far on the year after 2 interceptions this past week. 10 passes defensed. I mean, really solid. I mean, love to see cornerbacks out of Mississippi State doing well because it's not been great over these last couple years between Cam Dantzler and Emmanuel Forbes over there with the Commies. So it's good. It's good to see Martin Emerson doing well. So shout out to him. With that said, we got to keep her moving here. All right, what else we got? We'll just touch on this one quickly. Derek Carr is bad. His teammates do seem to hate him. However, the Panthers do stink. So the Saints get the win 28-6. Just a sad franchise run by a bad owner with a bad GM and a terrible culture. Boy, do I feel bad for Bryce Young, but I digress on that front. Saints are now 6-7, tied at the top of the NFC South. Whoever wins that division, your only saving grace is you host a playoff game. This is just a bad division with a bunch of bad teams. Texans versus Jets. Jets beat the hell out of the Texans in this game. Really down day for the Texans overall. They faced off against one hell of a defense on the other side of the ball. So that's kind of what will happen sometimes when you run into a buzzsaw like that defensively. Also, I think Nico Collins went out in this game as well, basically down to like Noah Brown, or maybe it was Noah Brown that went out. Either way, really bereft at wide receiver after Tank Dell went out for the season. You didn't have Nico Collins, and against a defense like the Jets, that's all they need. They ate the Texans for lunch today, and hey, shout out to Zach Wilson, a Texans defense that had been playing very well over the last couple weeks or so. Derek Stingley starting to look a lot like that that player that they expected when they drafted him, like number 3 overall, I think, number 3, number 2 overall, really playing well on that back end. However, they got absolutely worked by Zach Wilson and co, man. I mean, hey, credit where it is due. Zach Wilson had himself a hell of a game in this one. I mean, 27 of 36, 301, 8.4 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did lose a fumble, but that's part of the Zach Wilson experience. It is what it is. He had a couple of those throws where, had an exact replica of that throw from his pro day where he rolled out left, threw back right across the field, hit Garrett Wilson for a big-time play. And, hey, if they keep winning, I think Aaron Rodgers kind of, put it out there on the McAfee show this week that the 24th, Christmas Eve, was always kind of the goal for him to come back. Let's take a look at the schedule, because if they keep winning, and they're 5-8 now, they could find themselves in quite a position to come out here and maybe if Aaron Rodgers gets back in the game and his Achilles doesn't explode before our very eyes, maybe they come out there and make some noise. But they are playing the Dolphins next week. They're at the Dolphins too, which it's a big line on that one, and I don't necessarily trust it at this point. I think I feel like the Jets might be able to keep that one close. But after that, if you can get through the Dolphins next week and you can somehow find a way there, you get to 6-8. Look at what they've got going down the stretch here, man. They got the Commanders, who are terrible, the Browns, who have a backup quarterback, and the Patriots, who are terrible. So 3 very winnable games if you can get past. If you can somehow escape Miami with a win, the path to 9-8 is not non-existent here. They could very easily, if they get over that hump next week, find themselves in a position where they're streaking towards the end here, and 9-8 might be good enough to get you a playoff spot in the AFC this year. It's a log jam at 7-6 right now, and it feels like a lot of teams are going to lose in that range. I don't think 10-7 is going to be the 7th seed. I think 9-8 might end up being good enough to get you in the dance. And think about the story it might be if Aaron Rodgers comes back in on Christmas Eve versus that Commanders team, comes out there, balls out, plays like the Aaron Rodgers we know. Maybe over the next couple weeks, you got a tough game at the Browns there defensively or offensively with a bad offensive line, so we'll have to see how it works there, but could sneak into the playoffs. And if with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, if he's playing like the Aaron Rodgers we all know him to be, who's to say the Jets don't make a run here, man? There's no one overwhelmingly great team in the AFC. There's no Dallas Cowboys. Yes, I said it. I know they're playing very, very well. I have to give credit where it's due. Still don't really believe in them until they do in the playoffs, but I gotta give credit where it's due. There's no Dallas Cowboys. There's no San Francisco 49ers. No Philadelphia Eagles really in the AFC. That's just kind of a cut above the rest of the competition. It's kind of an even pack there. If you just get a guy like Aaron Rodgers back in the lineup and you make a run, just get hot at the end of the season, there's been lots of stories of this over there. One of Aaron Rodgers' one Super Bowl win. They got hot at the end of the season, had a really good defense, and the offense was playing very, very well. They went on, they won a Super Bowl. The Giants, both of the Giants' Super Bowls under Eli Manning, that's the exact same story. They weren't very good for a good portion of the season. Then they turn it on late, they get hot, and they make a run all the way to the Super Bowl, and they win the thing. This has happened time and time again, so watch out for the Jets, man. Again, it is going to be a tough row to hoe. If you know, you know on that one. I'll just leave that there. It's going to be a tough row to hoe next week versus the Dolphins, but man, this could be very interesting if they can find a win there and they get Aaron Rodgers back in the lineup. That's all I'll say there. That's really on the optimistic side of things, but I like good stories, quite frankly. So who's to say? Who's to say nothing will happen there? Could be fun. Could be fun down the stretch there. We need some drama in this NFL schedule. C.J. Stroud kind of had a coming back down to earth sort of game though. 10 of 23, 91 yards, 4 touchdowns on no not 4 touchdowns, 4.0 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So didn't ultimately have the game fumbling mistake, but at the same time, when your leading receiver is Brevin Jordan, a backup tight end, and you're relying on guys like the fullback Andrew Beck, Xavier Hutchinson, rookie 6th round pick out of Iowa State, fighting Marty Verzaks over there with the Cyclones. Nico Collins, who went out early. Really, they're bereft of talent on the outside right now. The injury bug has bit them something fierce right now, and it could be interesting. They could find themselves fumbling away some playoff chances. However, they do have the gift of playing a bunch of divisional games in a bad division. Well, a not very good division. We'll just put it that way. I don't want to say it's a bad division because they got 3 winning teams there, but the worst team in the division, they play twice down the stretch. They're at the Titans next week, and then they play the Browns with a backup quarterback, and they're hosting the Titans the following week before they're at the Colts to end off the season. Still very much could have a playoff trip in the cards. One of the many 7-6 teams in the AFC right now, but you just got to hope the Nico Collins injury is nothing really to worry about. That's the main thing. If Nico Collins gets back in there, maybe you've got a chance. Without him, though, and without Dalton Schultz, too, at tight end, you've got nothing. I mean, the cupboard is just bare right now if you're trying to make a playoff run. So we'll see. Houston might be one of those teams that falls by the wayside down the stretch, but with that quarterback, with that head coach, I'm not counting them out. I'm not counting them out here down the stretch at all. So that's that game. What else we got? Oh, the most exciting game of the Sunday, man. I mean, the Ravens hosted the Rams, and if you were at this game, my goodness, did you get a treat. I mean, it was back and forth basically the whole time. Lead changes, ties, I mean, just drama down the stretch. I mean, basically, the fourth quarter and the overtime was abject insanity. I mean, you had a clutch go-ahead drive by Matthew Stafford, taking him all the way down the field. Cooper Kupp gets the go-ahead touchdown. And then the Ravens, with a couple minutes left on the clock, they get the ball. They go right down the field. They get a touchdown. Is it a touchdown? I can't even remember. There's just so much stuff that happened in this game, and I was watching it while I was doing work, so it was back and forth, left and right. It was a sloppy game overall. There was so much rain. It was constantly raining, which is incredible that they end up scoring 68 combined points in this game. But, I mean, just back and forth all damn day. Ended up being where you get a go-ahead touchdown by the Ravens with 1:16 left. Zay Flowers had a really huge game, actually. Gets a clutch touchdown in there at the end, and then Matthew Stafford does his Matthew Stafford thing, gets them in position to get a game-tying field goal. They force overtime. Lucas Havlicek, by the way, I mean, in the rain, mind you, had a what are the things that the field goals? I'm just, my brain is dead right now. I'm sorry. I'm not usually this way, but the brain is dead. Yes, he had, I believe he was 3 for 3 in this game. Had a 27-yard field goal, a 51-yard field goal, then the go-ahead 36-yard field goal to tie the game up. Well, not the go-ahead, to tie the game up at 31 all at the end of the regulation. 3 for 3 after they signed Mason Crosby late in the week to possibly be the bridge there. In the rain, I think that's a guy with that performance in that environment, with that pressure on his shoulders, knowing that there's a future Hall of Fame kicker just breathing down his neck behind him. That's a situation where I think you got to roll with that guy going forward, right? I mean, that's one of the more kind of feet to the fire sort of, I mean, put up or shut up moments that you could possibly think of going in there with all that pressure on you and just nailing 3 field goals in driving rain. So, yeah, I think you got to roll with that guy going forward. He is absolutely, I mean, just playing out of his mind in this game. But ultimately, not enough, because after a couple stalled drives in the overtime period, I believe it was 1 stalled drive for the Ravens, 1 stalled drive for the Rams. Rams punted away like, okay, next score wins. You just, you got to get in position for a field goal. And next thing you know, that is no longer a calculation, because Tylan Wallace, who was only returning kicks because Devin Duvernay, the usual kick returner, was hurt at the time, he takes the punt return back. That's disgusting. I apologize. He takes the punt return back all the way, 76 yards for the game-winning touchdown in overtime, and the bank went crazy. I mean, it was a immaculate environment there in Baltimore, a game that I would have loved to be at. I mean, one of my friends was at that game, and boy, am I jealous of that guy right now. He had himself a front row seat for an absolute dandy of a football game. Terrible weather, but my goodness, would I have loved to be at that game 10 times out of 10. What a scene that must have been at M&T Bank Stadium yesterday. But the Ravens get the win, and with that win and the Chiefs losing later in the day, they are now all alone at the top. Well, it kind of depends on what the Dolphins do on Monday night, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But 10-3, they are all alone atop the AFC at the moment for the number 1 seed. And that could be a hell of a race between them and the Dolphins down the stretch to claim that number 1 seed and keep it into the playoffs. Having home field advantage at M&T Bank Stadium is a big win if they end up getting it. And this is a huge game that the Ravens won here, improving to 10-3. Rams on the other side, not exactly out of it yet. They were a hot football team coming into this thing, and they took maybe the best team in the AFC right down to the wire. So certainly not out of it yet, but 6-7 in a competitive NFC. We'll have to see how it goes down the stretch. They got some quality teams in front of them, but really outside of the 49ers to end off the season, which will the 49ers even be playing anyone in Week 18? We'll have to wait and see on that one. But they got the Commanders, the Saints, and then they're at the Giants until Week 18 when they play at the 49ers. Could still very much win out and go to the playoffs, especially if the 49ers end up resting everyone in Week 18. Could very well come out there and still get a playoff spot. And they're playing as good as any team that's in wild card consideration right now. They're right there. I mean, the Rams and the Packers are playing as good as just about anyone in the NFC right now, quite frankly. So, I mean, hey, with how bereft of talent that roster looked coming into the season, it just goes to show you Sean McVay is in his bag. And Les Snead, by the way, gets all the credit in the world, too, because, I mean, he drafted in the 5th round Puka Nacua, who is definitely the best rookie wide receiver of the entire bunch this year. So, I mean, hey, credit to that organization. They seem to know what they're doing, and now that they have gotten out of the fuck them picks mode, starting to rebuild the roster pretty well. I think they could conceivably get in position to make another run here in the near-ish future, depending on what they do going forward. Offensive line's playing well. The offense as a whole is playing well. Kyron Williams has very much established himself as the number 1 back, the best back that they've had in there by far, I would say, since Todd Gurley was there, which he's not Todd Gurley for sure, but he's provided something that Sean McVay has not been able to lean on really since Todd Gurley fell off and left. Or got cut. I can't remember exactly which one it was. Todd Gurley had like arthritic knees though, so that was kind of the plight of the running back, so to speak. Wasn't quite the same player he was, but at the time it was the end of the Rams era there. But that's besides the point. Kyron Williams, very much a top flight running back, and a guy with Sean McVay at the helm, the way he's able to coordinate a running game, could very well have some big time numbers for years to come. All you got to do is just kind of rebuild that defense. I mean, Ernest Jones is really starting to play out of his mind in this one, or not in this one particularly, but just overall as a player, he's starting to play out of his mind. Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald. You're going to have to invest some serious assets on the defensive side of the ball, make no mistake about it, but if you can get that defense right and continue to kind of improve on the offense incrementally, maybe get another receiver in there outside of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. You get like one more good receiver, just a quality complement receiver, and you build up the defense a little bit. This is very much still a team that could compete, especially if you keep Matt Stafford in there for another couple years. Very much in this thing going forward right now. So, Los Angeles Rams. This is why I didn't count them out in the beginning of the year when I was kind of doing early predictions about how this thing could go. They're very much, a well-coached and a well-run organization. So credit where it is due. Ravens, though, at the top of the AFC right now with looking down on everyone else. A very competitive AFC, mind you. Let's keep it moving. Yes. You know what? This is a time where I should just say they don't ask how, they ask how many. And the Vikings got one. That is one win on Sunday. What was the score? Well, it was 3-0. Didn't didn't score a point until after the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter. Josh Dobbs got benched, and by the way, not only did Josh Dobbs get benched in, I believe, like 2 drives, maybe it was even just 1 drive. Nick Mullins had more passing yards than Joshua Dobbs did in the entire game leading up to that point. So Nick Mullins probably the starter next week versus the Bengals, I would say. Look, the defense is playing out of their mind. That's the best thing I can say about this. Some NFL analysts, I know Mina Kimes specifically said she thought Aiden O'Connell would feast, and well, look at this for feasting: 171 yards, 5.3 yards per attempt, and 1 interception thrown directly to Ivan Pace at the end of the game. Shout out to the undrafted rookie, a real surprise there. Really a boon to that defense, man. He is playing out of his mind. A possible defensive rookie of the year campaign going on for Ivan Pace there. Probably won't get it because he's kind of under the radar guy, but 13 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, which was the sack, so never mind there, and an interception on the day. Just playing spectacularly, just a spectacular player over there. And the defense now is top 5 in basically every major statistical category, with a kind of being bereft of talent in the secondary. I mean, Mekhi Blackman's playing very, very well. I mean, I do have to say, Mekhi Blackman is starting to play very, very well. A solid draft pick in the belt of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah there, the GM for the Minnesota Vikings. So at the very least, it's basically flipped exactly opposite of what the Vikings were last year, where the defense is playing out of their minds and the offense just can't do anything on any given day. It doesn't help when Justin Jefferson making his return off of IR for a hamstring injury that cost him, most of the season thus far. He gets in there, makes 2 catches, and then Josh Dobbs throws a literal hospital ball that gets him annihilated over the middle. Safety hits him straight in the ribs. And I say literal hospital ball because Justin Jefferson had to go to the hospital for precautionary reasons, just to make sure he didn't puncture a lung or something. I assume that's no official word yet, I don't think, on Justin Jefferson. I assume that's a fairly significant rib injury that he suffered there on that hit. But yeah, a literal hospital ball that Josh Dobbs threw to Justin Jefferson. I think we've probably seen the last of Josh Dobbs in the starting lineup at this point. I think it's either going to be Jaren Hall or Nick Mullins going forward. My guess would be, since Jaren Hall was a healthy scratch, that Nick Mullins is going to be the guy. But I think from here on out, I don't see a situation where Josh Dobbs is going to get in there. I think I think the Josh Dobbs magic has been, kind of extinguished. I think it's gone. I think it's done at this point. So, just don't put one of the best receivers in the league in the hospital. That's all I ask. I'm a simple man. I'm a simple man. Just please don't get our number 1 receiver annihilated over the middle. A cornerstone of our franchise going forward, which we need to sign that man to an extension. By God, get that man his money. Get that man his money. You should get a blank check, and you should just be like, okay, that's a good number. We'll sign that right there, because he deserves every cent that he gets after this season is over, or during the season, whenever they decide to sign him to an extension. Just pay Justin Jefferson his money. That's all I got to say about that. The Raiders on the other side, they're not very good. Mac Crosby, shout out to him. One of the best defensive players in the league. Excuse me, him and Robert Spillane, probably the only bright spots in that defense, I would say. But hey, 13.5 sacks for Max Crosby on the year. Had another tackle for loss in addition to the sacks to boot. 4 QB hits on the day. Hey, good for you. That also does remind me, though, Brian O'Neill was in a walking boot after this game with a foot injury. Ed Ingram wasn't playing in this game. I think he'll probably be back next week. We were down to 0 reserve offensive linemen at the end of this thing. We were playing. When you got Austin Schlottman in the game, things are going bad. Things are not going well for you if Austin Schlottman is in the game. But still got Christian Darrisaw, so good. Everything is fine. Everything is going great, all right? 3-0, that's a win, baby. That is a win. We're 7-6, and we've got the Detroit Lions twice down the stretch. Kill me. This is going to suck. Also, the Bengals. There's a very real possibility that we go on the road to the Bengals and lose that game, especially with how Jake Browning is playing. Granted, going up against a buzzsaw of a defense in the Minnesota Vikings, I tell you, absolutely playing out of their minds, quite frankly. But a team that's not been playing well, lost 2 of their last 3, had to eke out a win versus the Raiders this past week. Boy, am I scared down the stretch. And it is loser mentality, but, every once in a while, a man with a winner's mentality does have a little bit of loser mentality creep in, and that's what's happening to me right now because on one hand, just out of principle, I'd like to win games. Winning is fun. It makes me feel good on the inside. On the other hand, though, if we miss the playoffs, maybe we're in better position to draft a quarterback. I'm just saying. I'm not saying I want to lose games, but if we do, and if we do miss the playoffs, maybe it all works out for the better in the next couple of years. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just thinking, here's the bright side of the situation. Here's the glass half full sort of mentality here. You know what? If we win or if we lose, it's all hunky-dory there, man. It's all gravy on the gravy train, my friend, because you know what? If we lose, we're getting in better draft position, and if we win, we're winning, baby. Winning is fun times. So I'm torn. This is not a team that's going to even win a playoff game, quite frankly. So would I like to make the playoffs? Sure, from an ego perspective. From a draft position perspective, I kind of want to be in better position to maybe trade up or stay pat and get a guy in the first round as our heir apparent at quarterback. I don't know, just me, just a me thing. But I don't know. That we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. As it is right now, I got 4 games coming up against teams that are probably playoff teams. Whew, this could be a tough stretch. So we'll see. Stay tuned. That's all I got to say about that, especially with the Packers playing as well as they have been. Whew, yeah, stay tuned. This could be an interesting down the stretch for the Vikings here. All right, what else we got? 49ers, buzzsaw. They're 10-3 now. They beat the Seattle Seahawks 28-16. Brock Purdy had a career high in passing yards, I believe, with 368, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Christian McCaffrey ran for like 80 yards on his first touch from scrimmage. Somehow didn't get a touchdown when it was all said and done. I don't know. Either way, 16 carries for 145 yards. Deebo Samuel, once again, Deebo Samuel last couple weeks, he had 3 touchdowns last week. And this week he has another rushing touchdown in addition to a receiving touchdown. He had 149 yards through the air and 1 touchdown, then 1 touchdown on the ground. That's 5 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He's playing out of his mind and overshadowed Brandon Ayuk, who as a pure wide receiver has also been playing out of his mind. 126 yards receiving on 6 catches. And when you got that defense on the other side with probably the best inside linebacker in all of football, Fred Warner. Nick Bosa, maybe the best pass rusher in all of football right now. Underrated. Megatron is playing out of his mind too right now. I'll tell you what. You add in a guy my goodness, Chase Young, who has played well now that he doesn't have the so much focus on him. Tough for me to say though. He didn't get a single tackle. Only just he batted a pass. That's pretty much it. But 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. 7 passes defensed as a defense for the San Francisco 49ers against a solid Seattle Seahawks offense. What more is there to say that I haven't already said about this San Francisco 49ers team? They're the best team in the NFC. They're still my Super Bowl pick. They've been my Super Bowl pick the whole time. And if you wavered off it, you're a loser. So yeah, I feel really good about this team still. I've not wavered one bit off of this Super Bowl pick. And with Brock Purdy playing the way he has, look, guys, do I think he should be the MVP? Nah. I think Dak Prescott should be the MVP with how he's playing right now. He's playing out of his mind and, honestly playing much better football than what Brock Purdy is right now. But Brock Purdy is slinging the pill, man. There's no question in my mind he's a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. He just had just over 13 yards per attempt. You don't see those types of numbers in an NFL setting. And obviously, a lot of that is due to having like Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle, all those sorts of guys on your team. But 13.6 yards per attempt is slinging the rock right now. Absolutely slinging the rock. He should, I mean, he shouldn't win the MVP, don't get me wrong, but he is, no question in my mind, a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. And as a Mr. Irrelevant last year, I mean, probably already the best Mr. Irrelevant of all time, being the last pick in the draft. And I would say probably the San Francisco 49ers quarterback for the next decade, at least. I mean, he's going to earn himself a big-time contract extension. Make no mistake about that. He's only probably a season away from doing that with, still being on that seventh-round rookie deal, which they should... Here's the thing. It should not be your go-to strategy to have a quarterback on a rookie contract in order to win a Super Bowl. But if you have a quarterback that's playing like a top 10 quarterback who happens to be on a seventh-round pick rookie contract, it would behoove you to go as all in as you possibly can to win a Super Bowl either this year or next year, because the price tag on Brock Purdy is going to go up precipitously after next year when he signs that extension after his rookie deal. So, like I said, shouldn't be your go-to strategy, but when you have the guy in the building, it would behoove you to just go all out, which is what the San Francisco 49ers have done. All the credit in the world to John Lynch. That trade with Trey Lance, trading all those picks up to go and get him at number 3, could have torpedoed the franchise, and all he did was build the best roster in the entire NFL over that time frame. And you got to get a little bit lucky in that sense to do that, but when you got a head coach like Kyle Shanahan and you pick like he has picked in the draft and done good things in free agency as well, bringing in Javon Hargrave and guys like that, all the credit in the world. He's done a marvelous job building this team with the exception of that one mistake trading up to get Trey Lance. I mean, just again, shout out to him. All the credit in the world for going out there and making a Super Bowl roster. And I mean, it's up to Kyle Shanahan and the guys on this team to get it done. But hey, you already know my stance on that. They're my Super Bowl pick. They're my Super Bowl favorite right now. They're the one team in the NFL that I would say is head and shoulders above the competition. They beat the hell out of the Cowboys earlier this year. They beat the hell out of the Eagles earlier this year, really last week. So those are their two competition in the NFC right now. And yes, Dallas Cowboys have been playing better as the season has gone on, but I think they're well on their way to a Super Bowl berth, and they will be a favorite over basically anyone they face in the Super Bowl on the AFC side. So ball's in their court right now. They just have to convert it down the stretch. All right, then. Let's keep it moving. What else we got? We got 3 more games to get to before I get you all out of here. First off, a controversial one at the end there. The Bills get the win 20-17 on the road versus the Chiefs, a game they had to have in a week where, it happened in 2019, but the story came out with Tyler Dunn, I believe, is the reporter, which it is worth mentioning that he's no longer credentialed for, access with the Buffalo Bills. Seems to have a bit of a vendetta, you could call it, against the head coach, Sean McDermott. So take all of that with a grain of salt. That being said, I think he sourced the story pretty well in the story that he released last week, where I believe he said 7 different sources confirmed a story that in 2019, and I only laugh because of how ridiculous it is that he even made this speech in a team meeting. He decided that his motivational tact would be that he would draw from the organization and the teamwork of the terrorists who perpetrated the 9/11 attack to motivate his team. And I believe one of the excerpts said he asked the team, what tactics do you think they used in order to infiltrate and hijack those planes? A rookie tried to make a concerted effort to answer that, and then later asked, what do you think their biggest obstacles were? A veteran on the team answered TSA, which, haha, very funny, good joke. However, TSA wasn't a thing until after 9/11, really, so there you go. Wild story. Apparently he basically immediately apologized to the team afterwards, which probably the right thing to do. What the hell's going on with the Buffalo Bills, man? It feels like Sean McDermott was maybe not coaching for his job in this game, but getting a win here versus the Chiefs was certainly a boon after the week that they had. I can't get over how ridiculous. Why would you even think that? Even if in your mind you think, oh man, these terrorists on 9/11 really had a good game plan going in order to hijack these planes and ram them into the Twin Towers, even if you do somehow think that wild thought in your mind, maybe don't try to use it as motivation for your football team. Just a thought. Just a thought. Maybe you leave that one in the back pocket to never be used. That's just something. Also, apparently, a little bit on a different note, still kind of weird motivational tactics. Apparently, Niagara Falls right over there by Buffalo. I think it's a pretty common tourist attraction. I think the Canadian side's a little bit better than the New York side, but Niagara Falls right there. There was a story of a woman who, I believe, like ran her vehicle into the river that led up to Niagara Falls and then got stuck on a rock. And then he told this whole story building up about how, okay, the Coast Guard was going in there. They're going to try and save this woman. They tried all they could, and then she died. She drowned. She's dead. And that was the end of the story. What I'm getting from that story from Tyler Dunn is that Sean McDermott may be the worst motivational speaker of all time. That's just a wild couple of stories to throw into a team meeting. I mean, a fantastic football coach, don't get me wrong. He took the Bills from being the laughingstock of the NFL, not having made the playoffs for like 18, 19 straight years, to being a legitimately championship contender year after year. But man, maybe not the greatest speaker in the world when it's all said and done. I can't get over that. But either way, they get the win in this one. Josh Allen, all the boys, a big win. James Cook had a nice sort of game. He had 83 yards receiving and a touchdown. 5.8 yards per carry, 58 yards on the ground. If you're doing the math at home, that is 140 yards from scrimmage. So really solid game for James Cook in a season where, really just over and over, they've tried to take James Cook's job away from him time and time again. So good for him for having a big game like this against a really, really solid defense in the Kansas City Chiefs. That is not the story coming out of this game, though. The story was on really a crazy play. I mean, Patrick Mahomes snaps the ball, hits Travis Kelce down the field because what else is new? Travis Kelce is the only receiver worth a damn on that Chiefs team. I mean, Rashee Rice has done okay, but the number one receiver by far, Travis Kelce, Hall of Fame tight end, hits him down the field, and then Travis Kelce, in one of the most awesome plays, a fantastic, beautiful play design, very creative, has a designed downfield lateral to Kadarius Toney, who runs it in for what would have been the go-ahead touchdown. However, all people in the broadcast noticed there was a flag, and that flag happened to be that Kadarius Toney was blatantly lined up off sides, so that negated that entire play. Ultimately, the Chiefs end up turning it over on downs in that possession. Patrick Mahomes comes off the field. He's hot. He's screaming at the line judge, telling him that's fucking bullshit or something along those lines. That's awful or something like that. Patrick Mahomes coming right off that pretty much. Just seconds later, goes from yelling at the line judge on the sidelines, losing his mind pretty much, that has to go into the post-game handshakes, and obviously not over it. He goes up to Josh Allen, is like, that's the worst fucking call I've ever seen in my entire life. I think that may be word for word what he said, to which, what is Josh Allen going to say? Basically just like, cool, we won. Didn't exactly say that, but he's basically just like, all right, that's cool, and then just kept it moving from there. Not much else he can say. And initially, because usually you don't see this from Patrick Mahomes, I love to see the fire on the sidelines, man. I love to see him just screaming, hollering, making a stink. But then you straight into what I like to call Luka Doncic territory, where you just complain about things so much and so persistently that I'm just like, come on, man. Come on. Let it go. It is what it is. It was, the right call. Sure, it's not a call that you ever see made for the most part, but when Kadarius Toney is clearly lined up ahead of the ball, usually you get a little bit of leeway if you're like slightly behind the ball, but clearly, a couple inches ahead of the ball, you get a down the line shot where you see he's clearly offsides. You're forcing the official's hand to throw that flag, but really after the game, Andy Reid said something along the lines of like, you never see that play called. It's an embarrassment to the NFL, all that sort of stuff. Patrick Mahomes saying it's an awful call, shouldn't have been called, yada, yada, yada. Fact of the matter is, I think pretty much everyone who's not a Chiefs fan can recognize it was clearly the right call. Clearly, it's not the officials' fault that Kadarius Toney is an absolute fucking dipshit. I mean, my God, man, I want to be nice to the guy. I mean, I'm an optimistic person by nature when it comes to these things. I want to see guys succeed. I want to see guys make big money and have long, successful careers. But the dude has dropped so many passes this year. He has a boneheaded penalty that costs the Chiefs the game. I mean, what more do you want from? I mean, what a disappointment, really. I can't find the words right now to just articulate how bad Kadarius Toney has been this season and really the past couple years. A guy with all the talent in the world, a guy that really, I mean, just based on his physical attributes, the stop and start, the speed, the explosiveness, he was compared to Tyreek Hill for a reason, man. Coming out of college, out of Florida, he's a dynamic player. Make no mistake about it. He's got an explosive bit of athleticism there. But my God, he is one of the more undisciplined players on the entire Chiefs team, quite frankly. Bad focus, can't catch the ball on a consistent basis, disappears at times when you need him to. If he's your number 2 receiver behind Rashee Rice, you've got a damn problem. That's a damn fact right now. And I'm going to steer clear of that right now. Obviously, boneheaded decision, or not really a decision, a boneheaded play that really cost the Chiefs the game. I'm looking at the macro sense here. I think if you're not named Travis Kelce or Rashee Rice and you are a receiver, I would imagine there is a good chance you will no longer be with the Kansas. Or Justin Watson, we'll throw him in there too because he's made some good plays throughout the season. Not a guy you want to rely on as your second receiver, maybe a solid-ish third receiver. But if you're not one of those 3 guys, I don't think you're coming back to the Chiefs next year. I think Kadarius Toney is gone. I think Sky Moore is gone. I think, basically everything after that, they're all rotational players after that pretty much. I mean, Justin Watson will probably stick around. Rashee Rice, they just drafted this year, and he's made some solid strides throughout this season. Still not really a guy that you want being your number 1 receiver, quite frankly. But a guy that's been playing better as the season has gone on. Caught the lone touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes in this game, so credit where credit is due there. But man, they need a full overhaul in the receiving core for the Chiefs. They probably going to have to, one, go hard in the NFL draft for sure. They're going to have to bring in some guys. I would guess in the first round, the Chiefs are going to go at a receiver. Because, I mean, you think about it, offensive line is still solid. They're not quite what they were the last couple of years, but still solid. I mean, that'll happen when you lose both of your tackles in free agency. That's just kind of the nature of the beast at that point. But really, really solid defense. L'Jarius Sneed, one of the better corners in the entire league. Underrated guy, quite frankly. And he's playing really out of his mind. Defensive line, defensive front. You got a couple Mississippi State guys anchoring that thing. Nick Bolton just came back in this game too, which helps out a lot. But that just kind of speaks to how good that front 7 is. I mean, even guys that you don't necessarily think of a whole lot, like George Karlaftis, first round pick a couple years ago. He's got, I believe, he got his 9th sack in this game, well on his way to double-digit sacks for the season. He's playing really well. I mean, the defense is good. Offensive line is good. Obviously, you still got Travis Kelce. We'll have to see how much is left in the tank. He plays kind of a style, though, where he could probably play till he's 40 because he's just that smart at reading a defense. He could play a Jason Witten role until his legs fall off pretty much. So you got Travis Kelce in there. You got a solid young receiver in Rashee Rice. You have got to go hard in the paint on the receiving core because that's the one thing holding the Chiefs back right now. If the Chiefs had like even a semblance of what they had last year at receiver, hell, if they had Juju Smith-Schuster back in the lineup there, maybe the Chiefs are still playing better. I mean, they wouldn't be 8-5 for sure. I think they'd be a little bit better if they had just. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster's not even that good of a receiver, but he's better than Kadarius Toney. He's better than Sky Moore right now. They need a full overhaul of that receiving core. I mean, you're probably not going to go fully in free agency. If they didn't sign a guy like Tyreek Hill to a big-time contract, they traded him away because of that. Probably not going to go get a guy like Davante Adams. They probably would have done that at the trade deadline if that was their prerogative, which, quibble about that if you will. I think if Davante Adams was on this team, you're probably looking at the best team in the AFC right now, so it is what it is there. However, probably going to get a mid-level receiver in the free agency. I don't know what the receiving class is this year in free agency, so we'll have to wait and see on that. I think they kind of go the way of the Packers, though, where you remember in this past draft, they draft Lucas Van Ness in the first round, and then after that it is just tight end, receiver, tight end, all that sort of stuff. I think they're going to bring in a bevy of young weapons for Patrick Mahomes next season. I just don't think, I think the receiving core next year is going to look almost completely different from what the receiving core looked like this year, and that is by necessity. I think they recognize there was a problem. They probably recognize there has been a problem since week one, quite frankly. But yeah, this is not a tenable situation if you want to win games. On the bright side, you still got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and you got a really solid defense. So they're never really that far off from winning a Super Bowl. And hell, if they kick things into gear down the stretch this year, they could very easily still get another Super Bowl berth, even with what they've not got in the building. That's just how good Patrick Mahomes is. Not looking good right now, though. I don't think this is a team that can win a Super Bowl with the deficiencies they have at a receiver, which is saying a lot considering you've got the best quarterback in the entire league right now at quarterback. But credit to the Bills, man. They're getting through this gauntlet stretch. They're it was tough. It was tough. I mean, they lose to the Bengals, they lose to the Broncos. But they beat the Jets, barely lose to the Eagles, and then they beat the Chiefs on the road. Now you just got to get through the Cowboys next week, which you're getting them on the road, which is good. That is fantastic if you were the Bills, because you don't want to play them at home right now. They are a buzzsaw at home. I make no mistake about it. They are playing better than just about any other team in the entire league at their home field right now. But you get to the Cowboys next week. You got the Chargers, Patriots, and Dolphins to end off the season. Everything is still in front of them right now. They could still very well make a playoff run here. They don't have the easiest schedule of the 7-6 teams. I think they've certainly got the best quarterback, though. I'll say that right now. Josh Allen, still one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league for my money. So we'll have to wait and see. But this is a big-time win for the Bills on the road in a game where they certainly were not favored to win. So good for them there. Broncos, they beat the Chargers 24-7. By the time you're listening to this, I guess Brandon Staley could have been fired. I don't think Spanos is going to pull the trigger until after the season. We'll have to wait and see. Hey, credit to Quentin Johnston. He's had a lot of tough stretches here, but 3 receptions, 91 yards. Maybe he's turning into a solid enough receiver. I don't know. They still lost by a bunch of points. This is the one game on Sunday that actually made us money outside of, a lone prop that I made on A.J. Brown last night to get over 6.5 receptions. That was off the books, though, so didn't work out for y'all, but basically just kept me afloat yesterday. Not a great day gambling, but Broncos, they're playing well. And, hey, they're one of the 7-6 teams, which, let's see what the schedule is down the stretch. They've got Lions, Patriots, Chargers, Raiders. So I think of the 7-6 teams, hey, Broncos, low-key, I think really could end up making the playoffs after having a terrible start to the season. I mean, they started the season 1-5, and now they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their last 7 games right now. Hot, absolutely hot. Sean Payton, probably his best coaching job to date. I mean, that's going back all the way to the New Orleans Saints. I don't think he's ever had a better coaching job than what he has done turning around this Denver Broncos team within the season. So good for him. Was not without a little bit of I guess controversy is the wrong word, but Chargers got a big loss in this one, not just on the scoreboard, but it looks like Justin Herbert is on his way to finger surgery. I mean, he's getting a consultation today as I'm recording this, but he has a fractured index finger. Already had I believe it was a thumb injury as well. He just stays getting his fingers shattered every single week out there, it feels like. So at 5-8, Chargers not a very good team, not going to make the playoffs in all likelihood. Coaching regime on the way out the door. It feels like a spot where I feel like the Chargers might just pack it in. I think Justin Herbert might just get shut down for the rest of the year. I don't see them trotting him back out there because for who? For what? I mean, he's not going to win. This isn't a team that's going to win a Super Bowl. Might as well just mail it in. play for draft position to a certain extent. Think about the health of your franchise quarterback there going forward. Chargers are just a bad team, man. They're just a bad team, and it's not just Brandon Staley that's on the hot seat right now. Tom Telesco deserves a lot of criticism right now with that big spending spree he had last offseason. Credit where it's due. Khalil Mack is playing a lot better this year. He's playing very, very well. Outside of that, though, J.C. Jackson, not even with the team anymore. He already went back to the Patriots in the most Patriots move of all time. Other guys there, haven't really worked out as well. Just a tough, disappointing stretch here over the last 2 years that may end up getting everyone fired, quite frankly. So we'll have to see how that all works out. At the very least, Brandon Staley's a dead man walking. I don't know. Again, my feeling is that he probably lasts through the end of this season, but there's no way he makes it into next year. Not a chance. The only reason he really made it into this year is because they got that playoff spot, and even with having that playoff spot, losing that 27-0 lead to the Jaguars, there was a real argument to fire him after last season too. So yeah, it just feels like the defensive genius Brandon Staley probably not back next year. And the final game of the day on Sunday Night Football, we got a marquee matchup, if you will, the final matchup of the season between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Big time division implications on the line. If the Cowboys get the win, they would be through the tiebreaker, they would have the number one team in the NFC East. Jesus, easy for me to get that out of my mouth, but no drama here. The Cowboys came out here, grabbed this game by the balls right out of the gates. They went into halftime with a 24-6 lead and never really gave it up from there. Dak Prescott just playing out of his mind in this game. Really, overall, not the greatest game, I suppose, numbers-wise, only 6.9 yards per attempt, but 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and did lose a fumble that did go for a touchdown. Was the only touchdown, by the way, of the Eagles' day. So that should tell you how the offense was playing for him. Also, Mississippi State on Mississippi State crime. Fletcher Cox was the one that stripped the ball from him, and Jalen Carter ran it in for a touchdown. But, it be your own people sometimes, man. It's tough to see. Tough to see right there, seeing Mississippi State on Mississippi State crime. But at the same time, love to see both of these guys playing well. Hey, Fletcher Cox still got something left in the tank there. That being said, the Cowboys beat the hell out of the Eagles. And like I said before, at home, the Cowboys are an absolute buzzsaw this season. They got a home field advantage there like they haven't had in basically the entire time that Jerry Worrell has been a thing. But Dak Prescott, that offense, and you know what? It's time for me to eat some crow here, folks. I've been holding off on it all season, just waiting to see how it plays out. But you know what? I'm a big man. I'm a big, strong man who knows when to admit when he is wrong. I was wrong about Mike McCarthy, man. He has called a hell of an offense this year. And granted, he's got all sorts of talent to work with. I'm not holding that against him, quite frankly. I think even with the talent that's there, it's basically the exact same personnel, with the exception of Brandon Cooks, that was there last year. And with that, Kellen Moore had a solid offense. Mike McCarthy has taken this offense to a totally different level, quite frankly. And that a lot of credit to him. There's a lot of concepts that you see in this offense that he's added in since he was with the Green Bay Packers too. It's not the same exact sort of scheme that he was running with the Green Bay Packers. He's added in a few more modern concepts than what he had back then when he had Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. So, yeah, credit to him. I did not think that this would work out well with Mike McCarthy as the play caller, and I was proven unequivocally wrong throughout this whole season. Dak Prescott's an MVP candidate. Got a really solid backfield between Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle, a legitimate number one top 10 type of wide receiver in the league, and CeeDee Lamb, a solid receiving core outside of CeeDee Lamb. It's just, all credit where it's due. Mike McCarthy has created one hell of an offense there with the Dallas Cowboys and brought them to consistent levels that you just never saw under Kellen Moore. So again, eating crow. I was wrong. My cousin Michael was right. You know what? It is what it is there. Sometimes you swing and you miss sometimes, man. Not everyone's batting 1,000, quite frankly. So, yeah, credit where it's due. I like the Dallas Cowboys, man. That being said, again, fair or not, show me in the postseason. You're going to have to absolutely beat the piss out of someone in your first game in the postseason in order for me to take you seriously. Is that fair? Probably not. But the Dallas Cowboys have not been to an NFC championship since before I was born. So, you know, I have reason to be skeptical. That's all I'll say there. As far as regular season goes, one of the three best teams in the NFC. I would say one of the three best teams in the NFL, and I would put them ahead of the Eagles with what they just did. So one of the best two teams in the NFL, quite frankly. They're right there with the 49ers, and 49ers are on a different level, quite frankly, but they're right there with them right now. And yeah, that's a big credit to Mike McCarthy and what he has done. On the Eagles side of things, they are 10-3, but I think it's okay to be worried. I think it's a little bit okay to be worried because this Dallas Cowboys defense, I mean, they just got basically smoked by the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday night last week. And then Jalen Hurts comes out there, accounts for 0 touchdowns, has a lost fumble in this game as well. The offense turned the ball over 3 times on fumbles. I mean, hey, credit where it's due. And this is kind of a hallmark of not Dan Campbell. I forget the Dan Quinn. That's the guy. Kind of a hallmark of Dan Quinn defenses where they just absolutely gun for the football. They're punching balls out left and right. So that's credit to him. I think that's part of the coaching, and really he's been one of the better coordinator hires in the last couple years for Jerry Jones on that team. So again, credit where it's due there as well. But even so, the Philadelphia Eagles have not looked like the same team over the last several weeks. They've been eking out a lot of these wins right now. Really over the last couple, it wasn't apparent to start the year, but I mean they lose that game to the Jets, which okay, you can live with that, but every once in a while you're gonna trip up, and then you go on a nice little 5-game winning streak. You beat teams like the Dolphins, beat the Cowboys when you're at home, you beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills, so nice little run there. But over the last 2 games against probably the best 2 teams in the NFL right now, they get smoked by the 49ers at home, and then they go on the road to the Cowboys and get smoked by them again, and the defense is given up. I mean, this is 3 straight games where they've given up 30 plus. They gave up 42 to the 49ers. They gave up 34 to the Buffalo Bills. Or actually 34 to the Buffalo Bills. They gave up 33 to the Dallas Cowboys. And I mean, you got to be worried, man. It's the losses in the offseason, the linebacking deficiencies, which they did bring in Shaq Leonard. So we'll see whenever he gets acclimated to the town. Probably going to be inserted in the starting lineup probably as soon as this next week. He just got to town, so probably wasn't going to play a great deal in this game particularly, but that'll help a little bit. But even without him, he's not a Band-Aid that's going to fix a giant gaping hole in the hull of the ship on that defense. I feel like losing all that they lost this offseason, not having C.J. Gardner-Johnson, also Reed Blankenship, by the way, who's filled in very admirably with C.J. Gardner-Johnson leaving. He went out in this game with a concussion. Oh, it just goes to show you it's, let's just say if he was Jalen Hurts, he probably would be back in this game. But since he's not Jalen Hurts, he was out with a concussion, didn't come back and play in this game. Yeah, it's a tough scene over there. You got some good corners, you got a good defensive line, but the middle of that defense, behind that defensive line, is suspect to say the least. Basically, if teams can defeat that pass rush, and, if they're running the ball, if they get past that first level, it is open season on that second level. Kevin Byard, I mean, he's okay. He's okay at this point in his career, but he's not the Kevin Byard that we've grown to know and love throughout the course of his career. It's just not been great. It's not been pretty. They got good corners and good defensive line, but the middle of that defense is suspect to say the least. And we've already seen in the last 2 weeks, when you face up against the cream of the crop in your conference and in this league, it's going to come back to bite you, unfortunately. I don't know. At this point, I don't want to put too much stock. I don't want to put too much stock in what the Cowboys have done in the regular season, because again, prove to me in the postseason. But if the Cowboys come out there and let's just say, if they get the 1 seed, they get the bye in the first. Actually, no, they're not even in position for the 1 seed right now. Because they got smoked by the 49ers. The 49ers have that 1 seed right now. Well, not all alone, but tied at the top of the NFC, but got that tiebreaker. Say they get the 2 seed, and they host someone in the first round of the playoffs. Probably, I don't know, say it's like the Packers or someone like that, either the Packers or the Vikings, and they absolutely smoke whoever they play in the first round. I would probably just realistically have them favored against the Eagles going into that next round if that is indeed who they end up playing. So I Eagles are in danger of not even making the championship game is what I'm trying to say right now, man. I feel like there's enough holes in that team, and the top of the NFC is good enough to where I'm worried about the Eagles right now. I'm very, very worried about what the Eagles are showing. So that's a big wait and see spot right there. We'll have to see how they are down the stretch. I have talked entirely too long though, so that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. Do this twice a week. Tuesdays, Thursdays, maybe even Tuesdays and Wednesdays. If it's like the day where I got 2 off days on Monday and Tuesday, we'll have to wait and see. A lot of wait and see right now in my vernacular. So yeah, I mean, either way, we do this twice a week during the football season. Yeah, if you enjoyed for some reason over the last hour 44, hour 45 of just constant and incessant blabbering. I appreciate you. You'll probably enjoy the rest of this, so go ahead and subscribe wherever you're listening to it. Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, any of those places you end up getting your podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. We'll be very much appreciative of that. Outside of that, if you want to follow what I'm doing, my Twitter will be down in the description at Caleb Verzak. If you want to contact the show, shoot me a DM there or email me unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. That's also in the description. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I've got no clue what I am talking about. However, one thing that I learned on this very week, in this very week of the year, is that I can't stall for long enough to bring it up. But you know what? It's coming. It's coming right now. I'm getting my notes. Already said that. I need to start deleting more of these. So, yep, there we go. Here we go. There we go. One thing I learned this week at the Vienna Summit in 1961, between JFK and Nikita Khrushchev, USA, Soviet Union, JFK was high off his ass on painkillers because of an ongoing back condition he battled throughout his entire life. And that's kind of the story of JFK is, very personable man, had some issues as far as pain was concerned, and he was high off his ass a lot of the time because he was on those painkillers. So there you go. You learned something new about JFK today. All right. See y'all later. I'll see you whenever we get back to this thing. Preview episode next time we talk. Have a good Monday night. Deuces.